The Luck of Cinderella. Thoughts after watching film Cinderella. Today the whole family watched the film Cinderella together. Now we understand that the fairy tale love story is not for people in peaceful times, but for people who survived in troubled times to warm their hearts. Today is an unprecedented era when almost 100 countries in the world have suffered disasters together. Films are being stopped. Sports are being stopped. Companies are closing down, and flights are being grounded. Billions of people around the world are panicking, snapping up, and fleeing. No one knows anymore where on earth is safe. Nor can the prophets predict when the current catastrophe will come to an end. The story of Cinderella is a fairy tale that all of us have heard countless times in our childhood. But after all these years, in these turbulent times, it is much more realistic to watch this film from an adult perspective. Now, watching this fairy tale movie, there are many new insights to this old story. After watching the film made on scene of Cinderella, we paid attention to many details in the film. These details make us think that this fairy tale actually has its rationality. Cinderella used to have a noble family. Cinderella's father was very rich. He often went abroad and brought her gifts every time. Cinderella is a poor noble girl. She should have received a good education for at least 10 years. Cinderella had grown into an adult before her stepmother came. Moreover, Cinderella is proficient in piano, chess, calligraphy and painting, sewing clothes, and dancing court dance. Suppose there is a girl who can really be like Cinderella in the film, then she really has a high probability of marrying a prince. So what is Cinderella like in the film? First of all, she must be very beautiful. Second, she must have a very good character. The greatest advantage of Cinderella's character is kindness and optimism. When Cinderella first met the prince, Cinderella thought the prince was just an ordinary apprentice, but she didn't despise him because of his apprenticeship. Later, Cinderella desperately wanted to go to the ball, and the main purpose was not for the prince, but to meet the apprentice in her mind. A girl who lost her mother and father was robbed of all her property by her stepmother and two sisters. She had been bullied all the time. It was very rare that she could maintain a kind, optimistic, cheerful, and generous personality. Besides, she must be very smart. In terms of IQ, Cinderella was an all-around talent. She could do everything her stepmother asked her to do, and she also did well. From washing, cooking to farming, only what we couldn't do without Cinderella. She could ride a horse and spoke a foreign language. Her singing was as good as a professional singer. From the aspect of emotional intelligence, Cinderella was very self-aware. She knew that her status and situation with the prince together were impossible. So when she went to the ball, She was satisfied as long as she could leave memories of a beautiful light. Cinderella did not try to get the prince to avoid blaming herself for not getting. Cinderella was not an empty vase, but a lotus flower out of the mud. In the end, she had been assisted by a fairy godmother. If it was an ordinary girl, when going into the palace, in the face of so many princes and nobles, could not be inferior, could not be so calm and comfortable, not to mention in full view of the straight and elegant towards the prince. Cinderella completely followed the characteristics of the older generations of princesses. Cinderella completely followed the characteristics of the older generation of princesses. She was young, beautiful, simple, and kind, so that just saying a few words to the prince in the woods could make the prince never forget. She didn't hesitate to invite all civilian girls to the ball in order to meet her again. Cinderella fell in love with the prince by chance. Some people think that Cinderella was not only too kind to her stepmother and sisters, but also silly. In fact, when the prince and Cinderella met in the woods, the prince is also very pure. The prince and Cinderella were spiritually fit, and the consistency of spiritual fit was the essence. The prince will fall in love with Cinderella at first sight and think she is the most beautiful, kind, and brave. It will give us strength. Surprising setbacks and tribulations will help us relax our mentality and maintain great compassion. No matter what kind of things and people we meet, it will help us laugh at suffering and frustration. Kindness can overcome discrimination, and true love can overcome hierarchy. Kind and brave, a little magic, luck, and the help of the fairy leader are the perfect and happy life. In any case, kindness and courage are the things of life. The entire film emphasizes kindness and courage and attempts to incorporate them into the depiction of Cinderella. This kind of quality is not only the yearning of children. Such qualities are not only aspired to by children, but also by those of us who have already entered society and gradually lost our childishness and heart. When facing the difficulties and frustrations in real life, we take this as principle of personal principles and the realm we seek. The good people in fairy tales will always have a happy ending, and the bad people will always be punished. But in reality, only when we are strong, kindness has power, and weak and kind people, most of them will be bullied, encounter difficulties, and no fairy godmother can go to help. Only by ourselves. For fairy tale, children look at the visual effect, and adults look at the content effect. So adults look at fairy tales with a different flavor. Beauty and handsome are also important. Born in this society, we should be in line with the mainstream aesthetics of the society. In this fairy tale, if Cinderella was not so beautiful and the prince was not so handsome, it may be a different result. Cinderella's beauty was the focus of attention, so the prince would have found the goodness within Cinderella. But if Cinderella were lesser beautiful, her stepmother might not see her as an enemy. Excellent people are always called genius, but only when you are excellent, the world will be gentle to you. When every girl was a child, she usually dreamed of being a princess, having a beautiful castle, and a prince who loved her. But not everyone is born a princess. Most girls are ordinary. How many girls are strong, brave, honest, and kind? In reality, all kinds of things test our hearts. Kindness and courage play a guiding role at this time. The film ended with the idealization of the prince and Cinderella living happily together, affirming the quality of kindness and courage. However, no matter how many advantages Cinderella had, it was useless for her to have no fairy godmother to help her at the critical time. So, it taught us that Cinderella not only had strengths, but also had the same characteristics as coin, commonly known as luck.